Voice chat is a staple in most online multiplayer games. Even though on paper it sounds like vocal communication would be a no-brainer addition to a game like League of Legends, it's never been added. In this video, I'm going to explain why Riot's refusal to add voice chat to League needs to be reconsidered. And if you're thinking to yourself why my opinion means anything, I've hit challengers, so I have some valid credentials to give my 2 cents. Does League of Legends need voice chat? The age-old question that players have been debating ever since the game came out. Yes, it does.
But Snowball, League already has a voice chat feature.
No, it doesn't. This League voice feature was just a cringe cop-out to what many players have been asking for over the years. It only works in pre-made lobbies, meaning that the whole purpose of it in the first place is useless. It's way easier to just use Discord since it's an actual software made to do the same thing but better in every way. Aside from that rant, before explaining my reasoning for being pro voice chat, I wanted to explain why Riot has never added it even though they obviously have the know-how considering Valorant has it. To sum it up, it's the potential toxicity. Looking at the pro player Darshan's tweet from March last year, he was basically arguing for the sake of adding voice chat. One of Riot's game devs, Joe White, agreed to Darshan's take but also stated that it could introduce more problems than solve, highlighting the potential of targeted aggressiveness from the player base towards women and people of color. So even with Riot's concern, why do I think otherwise? Well, I'll start from the beginning and just circle back to Joe's argument later in the video. First, I'll go over what I think are the pros of implementing voice chat in League of Legends. The most obvious reason being it's a team-based game. League is very unique in that the performance of your teammates actively contributes to how much more difficult or easy the matches can become, far more than other multiplayer games that aren't MOBAs. Take a game like Overwatch, for example. If you die, there's no sense of impending doom because you just respawn and are back on a leveled playing field with the enemy. There are no items and no currency system. You and the enemy are just the character's kits and how you use them. So even if your Overwatch teammates play badly, it doesn't mean you'll necessarily have a harder time facing the enemy. Individual skill feels more rewarded in this case, but League is a team-based game, so naturally, individual skill feels less rewarded with a larger emphasis on team play. At the root of a MOBA, you'll have more access to the game the more you and your team play off each other as optimally as possible. So optimal communication with your teammates like voice chat would be super helpful to make matches feel higher quality. I mean, there's a reason that using voice chat in competitive and pro play is standard. It's literally what a MOBA needs to be min-maxed in its highest potential skill ceiling. This leads me to my next point. With matches being higher quality, they would literally just be more fun. League is a video game, and I think people often get sucked into it so much that they forget the point is to have fun. While winning is really fun, sometimes you'll lose a match but genuinely feel that sense of GG if it was actually an intense but satisfying experience. I think that anomaly would become more of a consistent experience if voice chat was introduced. Also, to me, bantering with your lobby would make the game really fun too, even outside of the whole competitiveness and optimality argument. In Call of Duty, that was one of the most fun aspects of the game. It would be the same with League. Maybe it's because I'm a very social person, but considering these points, I think voice chat would also add a better sense of community in League of Legends. I could just imagine Champ Select VC just being a designated venting session from everyone's last match, reclaiming their mentals and drafting picks together. That is a universal potential for all ranks, in my opinion. The only real con one would think of that goes against the addition of voice chat in League would be toxicity. However, even on top of all the things I listed as pros, I genuinely think if voice comms were added to League, the game would be less toxic. Yeah, you heard me. Less toxic.
Snowball, but League of Legends players are the most toxic community.
Well, yeah. However, to expand on my theory, let's talk about what actually makes League players so toxic. The snowball-y aspect of League is a big part of it for sure. If the enemy laner has more kills than you, it's no longer an even playing field 99% of the time. When you're literally just getting stat checked, the game naturally becomes more frustrating. When you're winning hard, but when you're losing hard. Another toxicity generating thing about League is that the matches are super long. Every player's committing between 30 to 40 minutes of their time whenever they queue up for Summoner's Rift. If your teammates played poorly and the enemy team is extremely ahead in gold, you're essentially stuck in that match fighting a losing battle. Or that's at least how players see it when it's part of the reason they'd lash out, especially if your teammates refuse to surrender. However, this doesn't just stem from badly performing teams, as it can come from the toxic players themselves, which leads me to my next point. League is a MOBA, and since those are the hardest games to both get into and master, there is so much room to make mistakes. After hitting Challenger, a tip I can give you if you want to climb is to identify the mistakes you know you're making and learn from them. However, most toxic players don't do this. Instead, they blame others. The more mistakes a toxic person makes, the more opportunity they have to lash out their emotions and project onto their teammates. It's also way easier for this type of person to blame someone else for a match. Whether the player they're blaming performed badly or not, they'd use any opportunity they can to direct the blame away from themselves. This will also happen whether they know they're at fault or they're too dumb to recognize that their teammates aren't. Finally, the last main reason League of Legends players are so toxic is because there's no humanization in the player communication. When someone is being toxic towards you, whether you argue back or not, all the toxic person is seeing are pixels on a screen. It's much easier for someone to get carried away with what they're saying when there's no human emotion revolving the receival or reciprocation of their message. Like, if someone is calling me horrible at the game and saying things like they hope I get cancer and die, they're not seeing or really feeling the repercussions of their words. With these 4 points being the main catalysts for toxicity in League of Legends currently, it's very easy for me to break down why adding VC would contribute to combating these issues. For the first 3 points, they all fall under the same argument. Adding voice chat would subsequently increase match quality, as I've stated earlier. This boost in player skill would lead to eventually minimizing the toxicity stemming from a player's negative experiences in a match. With communication, players will most likely die less, which would make League less snowbally, which would also lead to players making less mistakes on average, which would then make the long matches less frustrating to endure from a losing perspective. In terms of the last point, if voice chat existed, there would be a lot less flame in my opinion. Players would be able to hear the other person's voice. You can feel that tension and the way your words impacted the other person. However, this doesn't only fix the issue by opening players up to empathy. Most people who are mean are just low IQ, insecure keyboard warriors, and the ratio of those people who would be mean to their own team in call would be way smaller. This is because it's less convenient to be hostile towards other people when they can actually defend themselves properly and put you in your place, especially in front of others. This fact would also just limit normal in-game chat toxicity as well, since there's less incentive to flame by typing in chat if your teammates might tell you to join the call and say the same words there. That type of situation could become a much larger confrontation than keyboard warriors would normally be comfortable with having in the first place. Basically, the fact that your teammates aren't just pixels on a screen but actual human beings would translate in ways that would make it harder to casually flame people, which is what the League community is known for. However, circling back to Riot's concerns about misogyny and racism, I think it'd be disingenuous to ignore them. We all know that in Valorant, playing as a woman is just inherently different than playing as a man. This is because most of the time they'll be treated differently immediately by at least one player. This difference in behavior can range from obnoxiously one-sided flirting with the classic Valorant accent, which sounds something like, "Fuzz, stand behind me, I'll protect you, can I have your Snapchat?" to flaming them just because they're female, whether they're playing well or not that it matters. So this is my take on that issue. Mute them. I know it's the classic red pill easy bake solution to a large issue, and most people would counter that solution by arguing that if Riot added voice comms and you muted a teammate for whatever reason, you'd be giving yourself and your team a disadvantage by severing potentially important information. Just bear with me though and let me explain. The most logical reason to mute a player is if through communicating they're actively diminishing your team's chances at winning the match that is currently being played. This can mean if they're being mean to you and making it harder for you to focus, or if they're shot calling horribly and getting the team into unfavorable positions. Looking at you, ADC mains. As long as a player's participation in communicating is actively sabotaging the match in any way, muting them is the best chance of winning and having fun. If you go play League right now, chances are you'll end up running into a player who's permanently typing and raging or whatever, right? Well, since the current solution to a low IQ, insecure keyboard warrior teammate is to mute them, why can't the solution to a low IQ, insecure, misogynist racist be muting them too? In this case, if the argument is that potentially muting people left and right is detrimental to your team's communication, why isn't it frowned upon in the current state of League of Legends? It's because it's not actually detrimental to your team's communication. Like I said earlier, players who are actively sabotaging the matches in any way through communicating already deserve to be muted. In a hypothetical world where Riot added voice chat already, the misogynistic and racist players who always target women and minorities fall under the same category. A player who through communication actively makes the match harder harder to win. You aren't putting yourself or your team in a disadvantage by muting a bad teammate, because said teammate is the liability themselves. So are the misogynists and racists. Even if there was a case where your team was at a disadvantage because you mute a teammate and the enemy team's full 5 players are cool and working together, no system will ever be perfect. Our current system is the furthest thing from. For example, currently you can't queue up with a duo in Master Plus rank. However, sometimes you'll run into a friend on your team and get in a Discord call with them, actively giving your team an advantage by essentially breaking the rules on a technicality and duoing anyways. This is just one of the many examples of how there are always imbalances in League of Legends. So why limit all of the potential positives that Voicechat can have on League over wildly immeasurable variables? I don't really see a reason to not implement it. Either way, it's not like this is a case where even though it could be more beneficial to add voice chat, we're still on a solid path regardless. The direction Riot seems to be heading is the complete opposite of where they should strive to be. If Riot wanted to actually rework the current communication system being pings into a more diverse and useful direction, they would have. However, Riot is actively nerfing communication. I mean, look at how they removed scoreboard pings. They're slowly phasing out communication instead of improving it. In a team-based MOBA where communicating is arguably the most important out of any other type of multiplayer game. All of this to say, League needs voice chat. It would make the game more accessible for new players. It would make it more fun to play overall because the quality of games would significantly increase while also adding a higher level of personal interaction with your teammates, and it would create an environment that is inherently less toxic considering the multiple factors I pointed out earlier. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed my take on why Riot should add voice chat to League of Legends. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribed. It helps me a lot. And I'll catch you all next time. See ya!